Hey there and welcome to the Vibrant Music Teacher Chat Show. This is the weekly show for all music teachers, piano teachers, voice teachers, instrumental music teachers who want to find out the latest news in our industry, some fun stuff that's going on, get excited about things that are going to be released by me and others in the industry shortly, and connect about a particular topic each week, as well as do some web reviews from our community to help you improve your marketing online for your music lessons. But if we haven't met yet, hi, hello, and welcome. My name is Nicola Canton. I've been a piano teacher over here in Dublin, in Ireland, since 2006, 5, 6, something like that, and I'm thrilled to have you here with me. This is the channel where I share tons of creative ideas and fun stuff for music teachers, as well as help you balance the business and the pedagogy. And today we're more on the business side of things because we are looking at admin as our special topic of today. We're looking at how to make admin work for you in your studio. So I'm excited to dive into that a little later in the show. Before we get going though, if you are new here, please do say hi in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. And definitely let us know what your thoughts are on admin stuff. What's your biggest admin bugbear? Whether you love it, like some in the chat have already chimed in and let us know. What's your perspective on all this office work? We would love to hear from you, and we absolutely do not bite. And if you stick around and you enjoy the show, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification icon so that you get notified when these shows go live, so that YouTube can let you know. Alright, let's dive into the latest news here in the music teaching industry. Awesome stuff. So the last week for me has been all about Inbox Zen. Give me a whoop whoop in the chat if you were part of the Inbox Zen challenge. That is the first time I've ever said whoop whoop in my life. And it was on YouTube. Congratulations to me. So give me a cheer in the chat if you were part of the Inbox Zen challenge and you enjoyed it. Or if you just found it difficult in some way, I'd love to hear your perspective on that too. I was pretty overwhelmed by the response to it in terms of I thought it would go pretty well. I was excited for it. But the response was even more than I thought, so it was even more needed than I realised for us to give the get the email under control, start to wrangle it under our powers, and also find some calm in our lives. I knew we all needed that right now, right? Who needs a little bit more zen? Well, if you were part of the chat, the challenge, like Elizabeth and Karen and Charlotte and Caroline and Teresa, oh my gosh, and Diane and Renee, I'm not going to keep going, but if you were part of it, thank you so much for joining me. It was really, really fun to do that with you, and it was something a little bit different for us and really fun to do. The other things we did in last week, so we updated a post, continuing on the January organisation theme. We updated a post about organising your digital resources, so you'll find that at the top when you go to the Colourful Keys blog at the moment if you're interested in that. That combined with the blog post that Wendy Stevens over at composecreate.com has been releasing should get your digital and physical sheet music resources under control if that's your goal this January. I know many of us do a bit of spring cleaning, a bit of reorganizing in January, and I have to confess I'm not really in that mode myself this January, but certainly if you are, we have the stuff there for you, so you can check that out on the blog. Some of the other recent stuff on the blog, we had a post about last year, what happened last year. I was just summing up some of the highlights of 2020. Yes, highlights, there were some, I promise. Some of the highlights of 2020 and some of the highlights to look forward to this year, but just a few of them. There's lots of surprises still in my sleeve. I've got long sleeves today, I can hide them, right? So yeah, if you want to check that out, that's on the blog. And the post and podcast that was just published today, as we're going live here, is about outsourcing your admin. So it's very much related to the topic here, but it's specifically about if you want to hire somebody else to do some of your admin, how do you go about that? What does that look like? I talk about how to do that using Upwork.com, which is one of the biggest digital freelancer websites out there, and the process of that. And if you're a member, you can check out the full course, which includes that as an option, as well as tons of other productivity ideas and experiments. That is called Productivity Power Up, and it is available right now inside the video library. Let me know if you've already checked that one out, by the way. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you if you've tried it and started some of the experiments. It's definitely one that's a bit of a slow burn, it'll be little by little over time to really take effect. And that's kind of how productivity works, right? It's small incremental changes that make the biggest difference. But one element in there is about outsourcing, or hiring out is another way to say that, of admin and other tasks, and it absolutely is not as scary as you might think. So definitely check that out if you have even a tiny inkling that maybe there's something you're doing that someone else could be doing. And maybe through our chat today you discover that that's the case. There's also a new video here on YouTube if you want to check that out later, about whether you're a productive piano teacher and what that means. And then the last bit of news, the last bit of new releases that I wanted to say was that we got a shout out, as well as tons of other fantastic blogs, in the latest post from Amy Chaplin. Amy is the blogger behind Piano Pantry, pianopantry.com. I have had the pleasure of being on panels with her and meeting her in person a couple of times at NCKP. Wish that we were going to meet in person this year, but alas, hopefully one of these years coming. But Amy she publishes what she calls Friday Finds pretty much every week, and she rounds up different things, and this one was all on the theme of lesson planning, and so she gave a shout out to one of our articles on that, but also just a roundup of lots of fantastic stuff. So again, if you have a bit of a resolution to improve your lesson planning, definitely go and take a look at pianopantry.com. Thank you very much, Morgan. That's awesome. It's a good point. Bright Notes also came out this week. So if you are a member of Vibrant Music Teaching, and if you're not, you can sign up at vibrantmusicteaching.com. But if you are a member, you can go into the printable library right now and you'll see Bright Notes in there, our latest edition. And we've had, some extra special feedback on that one. I think it's going to be one of people's favorites. Definitely jam-packed, wonderful articles in there, including the guest post from Gemma Wilkins, who's our community assistant in Vibrant Music Teaching, but she wrote a guest article for the blog, and it's in that issue, and it's really fantastic. It's about how can you be productive and structure your maternity leave as a new mum, something I don't know about, but Gemma has great experience with, and I think it's a really important topic, as many teachers will be balancing these kinds of things. So definitely take a look at that if you're a member. I think that's all my news. Let's take a couple of sneak peeks into the future, shall we? Right, so next week on the podcast, we're publishing a post and an episode about heroic habits, what I call heroic habits. So, and we're going to be discussing habits even more in habit building here on the show as well. So if you're not subscribed to the podcast, you might want to go over to your favorite place where you listen to audio. I mean, it's available all the usual places: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever, wherever and however you like to listen. We also publish those here on YouTube, by the way, the episodes just as the audio. If you prefer to just have a YouTube open, that's another option for you. Anyway, so that's heroic habits, and then we're going to be discussing that on the channel next week on our show right here. Again, the schedule for that, if you want to come along live, is 4 p.m. Dublin time. So it's this time, whenever this was published in your time zone, it should show up that way in YouTube, but if you want to check the schedule, it's 4 p.m. every Monday, that's when we go live with this show. So that's going to be about developing healthy piano teacher habits. And as you know, we take a holistic view on everything to do with being a music teacher, being a music studio owner, and how we balance our everything in our life, right? And habits are a big contributor towards that. They can make or break us. Also, a little bit further ahead, a bit of a sneak peek, next month, we've just had our challenge. Next month, we're doing something quite different. It's a masterclass, and it's going to be called From Teacher to Coach: How to Work with Adult Students. So if you need help working with adult students, it's going to be great for you. The masterclass is going to be available for free publicly for a short window to allow all time zones to get to it, but after that the replay is available forever in the membership. And then a week later we will have a members only call to follow up on all of those topics and put everything into action. So it's going to be like a mastermind session. We're calling them member huddles. They'll be super friendly, of course, and it'll be a great chance to take action on everything you learn in that show. So that's From Teacher to Coach. That's going to be next month, so you can look forward to that. All right, so let's dive in to our main topic today, which is all about music studio admin. You probably went into music teaching thinking you were going to be teaching music. And that's probably the main reason you went into it, either the teaching side or the music side. But there's very few music teachers out there who go into it thinking, I want to run a small office admin department for a music studio. But if you ended up working for yourself, that's what you do. You have to be the administrative assistant to your studio, and you have to run all of these things. You have to do the invoicing, you have to write the emails, you have to do the schedule, all of that stuff, and it all adds up. So how do we make it more manageable? And how do we reconcile the fact that we're a creative person and that's what we wanted to be doing, and yet we're stuck here doing office work? Well, I want to take you back in time to when I was first starting teaching. I started teaching at age 16, so as you might imagine, it was a little bit messy. I charged a teensy extra fee to go to students' homes, so everyone asked me to come to their homes. So I was a travelling teacher for the first several years of my teaching journey, and I was not so organised. I charged each week. Let me know if that's you too right now or in the past. I charged each week at the lesson. I was paid in cash most of the time. And I had this tiny delivery charge. I definitely didn't have invoices or receipts or anything like that. And basically all of the management was inside my scattered 16-year-old head. I mean, for a 16-year-old, maybe quite organised, but really it wasn't organised enough and I didn't realise it. That plus my text messages on probably at the time my Nokia 3310, oh yeah, were all that I had to keep my studio organised. Until I had a wake-up call. And I decided to take this whole teaching thing seriously many years after that. And that's when I started to bring things into line, to start doing term or monthly payments, to have an invoicing system that would let parents know when they owed me money, and to stop accepting random bits of cash from people. And you know what? The parents I had that were continuing with me and through those changes, they all said, oh, thank goodness. I hate looking for all these coins every week. So that's just one instance where actually it made it easier for everyone. But it takes that moment. It takes that minute where you have to say, no, this is my business now. So maybe for you, that's here today. Maybe it's been a hobby up to now. Maybe you are 16 and you're watching this, or maybe you're just a bit scattered with these kinds of things and you have to start taking it seriously. The reason we need to take this stuff seriously is because it affects everything else. Even if you think, oh my this is pure pain. I hate emailing everyone. I hate setting up invoices. I hate all this stuff. Why can't I just teach? Well, the truth is, every job has bits of it that people don't like. It can't all be roses. And if you don't deal with the admin stuff, even if it's not particularly palatable to you, if you don't deal with it, you can't teach effectively because it's stuck buzzing around your brain, and you're not going to be able to focus on your teaching and your students and all the things you really wanted to be focused on. This stuff has to get dealt with, but it doesn't have to overwhelm you. The first step to making your admin make sense is to measure it. If you start measuring how long it takes you to do this and that and the other, it's going to change everything about how you organize your studio. If you have no idea how long these things take or how much they take, how much money, you can't improve those things. And you can't gain perspective on whether it's working or not. Sometimes we blow things out of proportion in our head. Sometimes we think things are much worse than they are, much less organized than they are. And sometimes it's quite the opposite. You think everything is running fine, and actually it's a chaotic mess. If you start measuring these things, you can begin to improve them. I know this can be scary though. I know it can be like that closet that's so messy that you don't want to open it, because once you do, you have to acknowledge what it's actually like. But if you keep it closed, you're never going to get anywhere. So you need to start measuring how long these things take you and how much they take you. And that is going to allow you to justify spending money on tools or other people doing things. If you start measuring these things, you'll realize that you're paying yourself so little that it's making your teaching rate go into the floor, and that it's not an effective use of your time. You are a highly skilled person. If you got to the stage of being a music teacher, you spent years and years and years studying and practicing music. We have one of the biggest investments of time to get to the level of our profession. We actually do, and we don't treat ourselves like that. We are highly skilled people. We have a very specific set of skills, and we have put a huge investment into building those. So yes, you have to deal with the admin, but no, you don't have to do 100% of it. And if you start measuring these things, you'll start to find the spaces where you can do that. The next step to managing your studio admin is to get realistic. The biggest part of this for me, one of my, not a bugbear, but something I'm good at, let's say, that I see maybe other people aren't so good at, is estimating my own time. I'm not always perfect at it, but in general, I know how long things take me. Let me know if that's you, or if you're the other way, because I see this in a lot of the population. Not that I'm so special, but in this one area, I feel like I'm good at budgeting my own time. And I feel like a lot of people aren't. They have no idea how long they're spending on something, how long things will take them. They sit down to write an email or create invoices, and they think it's going to take 15 minutes, and it doesn't. It takes 3 hours. Like literally those kinds of proportions. Here's the thing about getting realistic. It's not just about measuring it after the fact. That's important. But if you want to get really good at this, you need to get better at estimating your own time. And the best way to do that is before you start, write down the time you think this is going to take. And then after you're done, write down the time it did take. Now, you don't have to judge yourself. You don't have to look at yourself and admonish yourself and say, oh, I thought that was why did that take me so long? No, you have to take on the role of the observer and just say, right, I thought it was going to take 5 minutes. It took 50. Why is that? And how can I change that in future? Or not even how can I change it in future, just why is that? And leave it at that. And if you keep doing this with tasks, you will get better at managing your own time, at understanding how long things take. Because sometimes it's a case where it didn't need to take that long, and you were getting distracted, and you were doing other things. And that's one lesson. Sometimes it's a case where that task does take 50 minutes. That's just how long it takes. There is no getting out of it. And so you need to budget for that, rather than trying to say it only takes 5. Because that just leads to confusion for everyone and a difficult situation. Another thing you might need to get realistic about, sorry about this one, is what we call your effective hourly rate. Does anyone do this calculation? Let me know. Your effective hourly rate is the amount you actually make for all of the time you're working. As music teachers, we are so guilty of only counting our teaching time, or just sort of roughly counting the other admin time. But we don't calculate how much we really make, because we say, oh, well, I make this much per teaching hour, and that's great. Even if it's $100 per teaching hour. If you make that, but you spend 60 hours a week doing admin, you don't make that anymore, right? If you make $100 per teaching hour, but you spend another hour working on the business side of your studio and the admin and all of that per student, per teaching hour, you only make $50 an hour. Maybe it's way less. And the reason I apologize for asking you to do this is many of us, when we do this, and believe me, this was my first experience with this calculation too, we discover that we're below minimum wage. Or just like ridiculously low, way lower than we expected, right? But again, you have to open that closet. It's messy inside, yes, but it won't get tidy unless we look at it. So, get real with yourself, calculate your effective hourly rate, work out what it is, and then you can try to improve it. But again, if you don't measure things, you can't make changes. And then from there, you can make small, incremental, tiny changes at a time. The next area of admin that I want you to look at is tools. But I want you to be careful here. So you probably need some tools, or you probably should be using some kind of tools, such as, say, My Music Staff, or Tanara, or Google Classroom. They don't have to be paid. Some of them will be free, some of them will be paid. But either way, there's an investment involved, because there's an investment of money, maybe, but definitely of time, no matter what tool you're talking about. And there's a real danger here that we start using tools and we use them unwisely. We just dive into it because we heard about it and it sounded cool, right? Good example of this right now for me is, or it could be, Google Lens. Who's seen Google Lens? Oh my gosh, that's cool. I want to play with it. But do I see a real use for it in my teaching or in my business right now? No. So I acknowledge to myself that that's just for messing with, and it'll come back around to you if it becomes a useful tool or you think of a good use for it. But for the most part, we don't want to explore random tools. We want to have an issue that we're trying to solve and then go to work finding a tool for that issue. If your issue right now is that you're sending out manual invoices and you're manually signing up parents for group workshops, or you have a spreadsheet or a notebook with all your students' information and it's super disorganized, all of those things could be solved by My Music Staff. That would be worth paying for if you have one of those issues. But if you already have a different way of doing those things, it's not going to solve anything. You have to have a problem before you seek out a solution. It sounds so obvious, but I've done it the other way around and I'm sure you have too. We all love those shiny, magpie-like objects, but we need to be careful about how we use tools, right? They're not always going to save you time. And saving you time or money might not be the reason you want to use that tool. And that's fine too. It doesn't have to save you time or money. It might provide a better experience for your students or their parents. And that is fine too. But you have to know the purpose. You have to be wise about it. You have to be careful about why you're using these tools and why you're bringing them into your admin process. And remember, no matter what tool we're talking about, just one thing. Just do one thing at a time. Alright? Not every tool. Don't go grab my music staff and Tanara and Google Classroom and Google Lens just because I happen to say those 4 things. Pick out a tool for the problem you have, and if there is more than one tool that's going to solve that problem, do one at a time. Just do one thing. Okay? No matter whether we're talking about admin or teaching or anything else. My final tip when it comes to music studio admin is to reassess regularly. You have to have periodic check-ins where you look at your measurement of things, where you look at the tools you're using, where you look at your estimates of the time you're spending and your effective hourly rate, and you say, is this balanced? Because things fall out of balance. Even if it was perfect for you 6 months ago, it might not be now. Now, this has to be periodic, in my view. If you do this too regularly, you can totally obsess about it. So set an increment. Maybe it's the end of every term. Maybe it's the end of every year. Maybe it's Christmas and Easter. I don't know. But you pick periodic times when you sit down with everything that you're using, all the tools, all the administrative systems that you have for your school, and you decide what's working, what needs reassessing, what needs cutting from the budget if you're paying for a tool, and what needs trimming down in terms of the time you're spending on it. Another thing to reassess during that time is whether you need to be doing that task. The latest episode of the podcast will definitely help you with that. It's called, it's all about outsourcing your music studio admin. So if you're interested in that, if you think it might be helpful for you, definitely check that one out. That's on the Vibrant Music Teacher podcast. That is a great option to look at if you have things on your list that you have to be done for your studio, but do not have to be done by you. If you're a bit of a recovering control freak, I get it. It's hard to let go of these things. And some things will need to be done by you. Let's be realistic. You need to write emails that are carefully thought out about your students' progress to their parents, or something like that. That should be you. That's a personal touch. That's important. You need to write that and be able to stand behind it. But do you need to copy things from a Google Sheet into Tanara when you're setting it up? No, you don't. Do you need to create individual invoices every month if that's how you're doing it? No, someone else could. And if you're still coming up against, I can't possibly hire someone, know that you could literally hire someone for 1 hour a week. You could hire someone for 1 hour one time, if that's what you're looking for, on a service called Upwork.com or similar services. You can literally go on there and get someone from near you, if that's important to you, or from far away. You can hire someone from India, from the Philippines, or from Ireland if you want. And the rates of pay vary throughout the world, not because we're being unfair to them, of course, but because the cost of living varies, right? So you might be able to hire someone to do that admin task for $5, $10. And if your hourly teaching rate is $30 and it would have taken you an hour, you've just saved $25 or $20. Don't let these things block you from getting started. It honestly does not have to be a huge commitment of time. You don't have to sign any contracts with anyone. You can literally hire people by the hour these days, and it can make an enormous difference in terms of taking things off your plate that you shouldn't be doing in the first place. My last question for you on the admin front is this. And this is a question that's kind of in the zeitgeist right now, which is, what would this look like if it was easy? What is something right now that you feel you need to ask that question for? What would this look like if it were easy? If something is weighing on your mind, if it's stressing you, if it's just something you procrastinate over, ask yourself that question. What would it look like if it were easy? And then how can I make it so? How can I bring it into line with that? Just checking in with your questions here. Teresa, that's so interesting. The single task experiment was a great eye-opener to realize how I must judge time management. Yeah, we all do to a certain degree. I'm not pretending to be an angel on that either. It's definitely a difficult thing to do, and that's why it's a skill you have to practice. So you have to practice estimating it and then checking if you're right or wrong at the end, right? And just keep doing that. Practice, 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 right? Christy, if I hire someone to clean my house, yes. I don't know if they're cleaning, you have to talk to your tax professional, Christy. But if they're cleaning your studio, I don't know. Yes. Maybe there's an argument for a certain percentage if it's a certain percentage of your house, like we can do with heating or electricity bills, that kind of thing. Maybe. Talk to your accountant. See what you can do. Yes, Janine, using my music staff to send out lesson reminders during the time of COVID has been huge. Yeah, people are forgetful right now, which is totally understandable, obviously. And nice. I also started charging out per lesson, taking us back to when I was 16, yes, Andrew, you were a travelling teacher as well. Yeah, many of us start that way. I mean, I was 16, right? I was in my parents' house. Like, I didn't have my own teaching space. Nice thoughts, everyone. Okay, if there's any more headaches when it comes to admin that we could help you to brainstorm how to make it easy, let us know in the chat. We're going to go into our web reviews. Before we do the web reviews this week, I wanted to go through a few things about what I'm looking for every time I do one of these, because I think it would help you get even more out of it, and it also means that you can join in almost as we're going through the site and add your thoughts on these things and how the person is doing with fulfilling them. So, and it'll also help you even more reviewing and improving your own studio website. So here are my 6 criteria. These aren't the only things that I will comment on, but I think these are the things we keep coming back to again and again, and if you're a regular, you will have seen these. So number 1 is a bit of a funny one. I couldn't have predicted this before doing the reviews, and that's why they're so useful for me too, is that many people do not have enough text on their websites. There's just not enough content there. And if you don't write stuff, Google doesn't have anything to look at. That's the big problem with that. Yeah, people don't either. But especially Google, it can't really look at pictures. It can look at the alt tags and stuff. But really, you need enough text there to say who you are and what you do and why you're great and where you are. And if you don't have that, Google can't show you because it doesn't know what you're doing because you haven't told it. And people getting there don't know either, right? So more text. Number 2 is a clear call to action. That's what CTA stands for. A call to action is something like a big button that says enroll now or book your trial lesson or get on the waiting list. It's what you want people to do, plain and simple. If you don't tell people what to do, they don't know where to go, and they might meander around the site, but most likely they're closing that browser tab. You have to give them an action to follow. Number 3 is about consistency, and I mean consistency of the design. That doesn't have to be complicated. Some of you may know I come from a design background, but I'm not talking about anything tricky here. The simplest, easiest way to make your design better, in the vast majority of cases, is to be consistent with it. You pick just maximum 3 colors on the whole site, not including white, okay? But probably 2, and 2 fonts. And you use those everywhere in the same way. Might sound boring, but it's going to look modern and clean and simple, and it's going to be better than the vast majority of websites, not just studio websites, websites out there. So consistency is really important. Number 4 is that it shows something about you. What's different about you? If you're a very serious classical teacher who prepares students for competitions, it should showcase that. If you're all about games, hello, it should showcase that, right? My own site is full of color and pictures of games and, yeah, vibrancy. That's what I'm all about. And so that shows on my site. Whatever it is that you do, whatever makes you different as a teacher, that should show up on your site. Number 5 is real photos. That goes into number 4. It helps towards it. But real photos, meaning not stock photos. We don't want to see some beautiful close-up of piano keys. We want to see you and your students so that we, the parents, can picture our kiddo taking lessons in your studio. That's what we want. Real photos. Even if it means they're slightly lower quality, real photos are better. And number 6, a simple menu. Simple navigation system. A studio website should not be a complicated menu. I, as you may know, run lots of different websites and things like that, and sometimes we come up against real menu issues where there's a lot of things that need to go in there, and the organization can be quite complicated and difficult to structure well. However, a studio website menu does not need to be complicated. It should be just a few items, and it should be very clear where I'm going on each of those menu items. So that's what we're looking at. Let's dive in and keep those 6 things in mind as we do so. Okay, so this is our first site for today. It's called Bella Music Studio. Things I like right away on Bella Music Studio are basically the design of it. So it is clean and modern and simple. It looks recent. It looks like an up-to-date site, which is great. We have this Bella Music Studio over here. It's not a logo. That doesn't matter to me. I think people fuss over logos too much. Logos are nice and they're fun, and if you want to get one for your studio, awesome. But I don't think it's a big deal. I think just your studio name in text can work just fine. However, who can spot which of the 6 things I'm really missing here? Let me know in the chat. My first thing, that's a nice effect, isn't it? But my first thing I noticed when I arrived at Bella Music Studio is the lack of text. And some of you may be guessing call to action right now, but actually it's lack of text. That's my big thing here. I've just got this one sentence and a few bullet points, and there's really very little going on there. And then I have a login to my music staff. That is fine to include on their site, your site. I know why people have these. It's about, it's for current students, is to help them organize their lessons and stuff like that. But I don't think it should go on your homepage. I don't think your homepage is for your current students. I think it's for your prospective students. And so this could go on a separate page at a specific link, or like down the bottom would be fine. But right up the top, no, I think it's really confusing. I arrive here and I think, well, I need to log in. Oh, I don't have an account. Oh, I guess this is, no, not for me. I assume it's not for me because I don't know what to do with this. So it needs a lot more text here explaining who you are, what you do, why you do it, why you're awesome, without saying it like that. And then more photos up the top of your actual studio. Now this could be you, but it looks like a stock photo. So I would prefer to see smiling students, you, anything that is clearly your studio. Okay, and then down here we have a picture, and I know this is really your studio this time because I've got oral paddles over here, rhythm vocab, we have a VMT curriculum, I'm not positive which one that is, it could be Tiny Finger Takeoff, and then we have this fun toy over here and the musical alphabet die. That's all great, that's a great image. More photos of students would be look, way more fun photos, but they're hiding. They need to be scattered throughout the site, and they definitely need to be up the top here. In terms of consistency, the fonts seem to be reasonably consistent, which is good. I've only seen 2 fonts so far, so that's great news, but we do need a bigger call to action on the homepage. Interest form is kind of your call to action here, but the button is not standing out to me enough, and a call to action should be worded as the thing I'm going to do. So think about it as the end of the sentence. I want to, right? So I want to book a lesson. I want to enroll. I want to ... whatever your thing is. It needs to be something more compelling. So interest form. All right, okay. That also takes us away from your site. So I wasn't necessarily expecting that, and I don't think parents will be either. Yeah, so I would question if that's the best place to send them to Google form. Maybe you can embed it on your site instead of sending them off to it. But either way, the main priority here is text on the homepage. Let's see if there's much on the other pages. Yeah, no, not enough text there. Way more. I'm gonna set a random minimum for you, Mary, because I think it's useful to have those parameters. So let's say each page should have an absolute minimum of 500 words. And really, ideally, you're looking at 800 plus for most pages that Google will actually index, actually bother to show to people. This page looks good. It's a little bit distant. I would like it to be more personal. So like, hi, I'm Mary is a great start, but then Mary, right. So this is in first person, this isn't. I would go with all first person personally, but even if you're not, then change the title. But it's very much about you, and the secret about the About page is that it's not about you. It's supposed to be about them, the viewer of your site, in this case prospective piano parents most likely, or adult students if that's your specialty. So it's about what you can do for them and why you're the right choice for them, and you illustrate that through telling something about yourself. Yeah, other than that, just more text again, Mary. Sorry to keep saying the same thing. But yeah, great job on the design of the site. I think it's looking really clean and nice. I think you've got some lovely photos that you can definitely use more strategically throughout. But the main thing is you need to get to writing. Alright, website number 2 today is Karlin Labenska Piano Studio. Sorry if I mispronounced that. This is sort of logo, that's why it's more cursive, but I like that Piano Studio is not cursive, so it's definitely readable, and I think that's okay. Then, yeah, so we've got this big graphic on the home page. We do have a simple menu, so no one's fallen into that trap today, which is great. You've got your COVID notice up the top here. Okay, good, nice and simple, not too alarmist or anything like that. And then you've got testimonials cycling through down the bottom. Okay, so what I always recommend with testimonials, if you can get a photo to go along with it, that's definitely way more believable. Not that people really think you're lying, but there's just this kind of credibility that comes along with a photo that really makes a difference and really sells the whole thing. Do you just have the 2, or did you have a whole bunch? You have quite a few, so I honestly would just remove the anonymous ones. Yep, there's only 2 of them, and the other ones are great. You don't need that many testimonials. Yeah, it's nice to have lots of them, but honestly, I would just remove the anonymous ones. It's a shame that they were anonymous, but you know. Lovely photo of you. And really nice personal about here. Well done on that, Carlin. So, did you love it? I believe music has the power to change lives. It's much more friendly in the writing style than we see on a lot of sites, and it's much more specific to you, I think. And then you've got your little bio down here, like there's your credibility. This is who I am. I do have a master's, blah blah blah. That's fine, but this is up the top, and I think that's the right way around. Okay. Yep. The piano lessons page itself needs a lot more text there, but the FAQ section is good. Just check that YouTube link. Looks like it's not embedding properly, unless you're meaning to send people to your channel, in which case just, yeah, no, you are. So be clear about what's happening. Just write, like, go to our YouTube channel if you want them to go there. If you don't, though, don't send them there. So always be really careful about where you're sending people and why you're doing it. If they're already on your website and the main place you want them to be is on your website so that they sign up for lessons, don't send them to YouTube. Embed YouTube links. The reason to send someone to your YouTube channel is if you want to build up your YouTube subscribers and build up your visibility through YouTube itself, because YouTube likes people to watch stuff on their actual platform. However, if you're just using YouTube, as many piano studios would be, as a place to store your videos, then just embed them on your site rather than sending people off there. Okay, everything else is looking good. Just the same thing about the text. So like, that isn't even text, that's a graphic. You can see by the fact that I can't highlight it there, that's why I'm double clicking. So there's actually no text that Google can see. It can see the testimonials. That's it, Carlin. So you need to write a lot more on the homepage. Even if you write it below the testimonials and people almost never go scroll down to it, that's fine. But it's there for people who want to read a bit more, and it's definitely there for Google. And then your call to action, last thing, just needs to be a lot bigger and a lot bolder. Pick one bold standout color that you use for calls to action, and have my eye drawn to that, right? At the moment my eye just gets completely drawn to all of these music notes and stuff, and not to this at all. And the slider, actually, the button is really the last thing I see, and you want it to be the most standout item on the page. So calm everything else down and make that brighter. Hopefully that helps. Great work to Carlin and to Mary, and thank you both so much for sharing your sites with us so that we can all learn, and I hope that feedback was useful for you. Alright, checking back in with our questions. I know I saw one and it wasn't in all caps, so I'm going to have to scroll carefully here. That's why I've got my crazy eyes on. Nope, it was later than that. I missed it. Okay, I'm going to go with Patricia's first, and then I will find that one. If anyone wants to retype it, if they know what I'm talking about, that would be awesome. But Patricia asked, is there an inexpensive way to have someone else do promotions and advertising? Okay, that's an interesting question, Patricia. Thank you for that. Is there an inexpensive way to have someone else do it? My first question is there an inexpensive way to do promotions and advertising? And the answer is most likely no. It depends what type of advertising we're talking about, Patricia, but for most studios, we're talking about building a great website, and putting in place all these organic things which don't actually really cost anything. I mean, the website fee, but there's nothing major there. And if you're getting someone else to set that up, we can talk about that. But if you're specifically really talking about advertising rather than just general marketing, then most people are talking about Google Adwords and Facebook ads these days. I have not used either. Well, I've used Google AdWords a very long time ago for my studio, and I've not used Facebook ads for my studio. So I can't speak to the effectiveness of either. I know that many teachers do find them useful. I know many teachers who have been completely burned on them. But the question about it being inexpensive, you have to start with those costs. Those are already large costs. So then on top of that, if you hire someone else to do it, and if you hire someone really good, it's going to be really expensive. And if you hire someone less good, less well trained, and less specific to your industry, I think it's going to be tough to get a return on the investment of the actual advertising. So the person might not be that expensive. That's possible for sure. But the return from the ads, I don't think is going to be amazing. Linda, do you schedule your own practice time and how do you fit it in? No, Linda. I don't practice as much as I would like to. I'm not a performer. I don't have any kind of regular performance gig or anything like that. So in general, I'm only practicing for a specific occasion. If there's a student concert coming up that I'm going to play something at, and then I'm practicing my own piece and duets I'm playing with them and stuff like that. In terms of my own practice, I do play, but I like to be clear about the difference between practice and play in my own head, because I like for students to be clear about that too. And so, yes, I'm very much playing most of the time. I do play, but it's my favourite thing to do is just sight reading through random books, and that is useful for my teaching, of course, because I, play through random books and I discover whether they'd be good fits for certain students or others, etc., etc. But the answer to me scheduling my practice is that I don't do it effectively. Oh, and that was your question from earlier, Linda, that I had missed, so thank you for retyping it. Patricia, okay, what do I suggest to get students? That is a really big question. So what I'm going to do is refer you to a few resources. For members of Vibrant Music Teaching, there is a course called Modern Marketing for Music Studios. So that is in the video library. If you navigate to the video library, check out that course. It goes much beyond just acquiring students, just advertising, just marketing at the surface level. It goes all the way down into retention strategies. How do we keep them? Because that's equally important. So that is my number one suggestion. If you're not a member and that's not available to you right now financially or whatever, then we do have a good blog post on this as well. So if you go to colourfulkeys.ie/marketing, I think. Let me just double check that. Yeah, that's it. So I'm going to type that into the chat. If you go there, there's a post with 11 different ideas for that, for marketing. That will get you started. The full course inside Vibrant Music Teaching will take it a lot further than that. Andrew, hi. How much time do you think I would need to spend on marketing if I don't already do it? Andrew, how much time should you spend on marketing? Oh my gosh. Big questions today, guys. So, there's a few factors going into that. So let me just explain those. Number one, how many students do you need? As in, how many students do you need total? What's full for your studio? And how many you're at now, right? So if you're at like 50% capacity of a studio, an ideal studio number of 60, you need to do a lot of marketing. If you're at 25% capacity of a studio of 300, a school with multiple teachers, you're going to have to be marketing like crazy, and you're definitely going to need paid advertising, as far as I would guess. However, in terms of, so that is a huge factor there. The next factor is your area. I mean, it just varies so much. There are areas where there's so little demand for teachers, and then there's areas where, people cannot find a teacher for their child. So it depends where you are, right? And what you're charging and where you are in the market. I think you need to do, if your studio is full, how much marketing do you need to do? Enough that you still get some inquiries still, because you want to have that in the bank, and you want to have some level of a waiting list. You don't need a huge waiting list. Mine is ludicrous, like it's silly, and we can't take most of those students, and there's no point, right, having a giant waiting list. I don't relish the fact that I have all these people waiting for lessons or inquiring that we can't possibly fill, but that's the situation I'm in. So that doesn't answer your question at all. But those are maybe some questions to ask yourself. How much of a priority is this right now? How many students do I need? What has worked in the past? And what is the rate at which I normally get students? And after that, it's just testing. You just have to test which things are working and which things aren't, and the rate of acquiring new leads or getting inquiries from potential students after you do whatever marketing you're doing. But for those watching that have no start on marketing, who don't have a studio website, just start there, please. It is the most important thing. It doesn't have to be hugely complicated or difficult at all. We have a tutorial inside Vibrant Music Teaching for that if you want to get started with that, or if you prefer to use Wix or some other Squarespace or some other system and that helps you get started, do that, because the most important thing is that you have a presence online, especially right now and going forward. It's going to keep getting more and more important. And the good news about that is most music studios have terrible online presences. Not terrible, but if you look around your area, chances are you're going to discover only a few studios with really good sites representing them. And so it's really easy for you to get up into the top percentage of studios for an online presence, and that is the most important factor going forward. I truly believe that. It varies right now, no matter depending on where you are and how much people look for teachers online where you are, but as we go forward and forward, it's going to get more and more important. So that would be my thoughts on that. Okay, so thank you all so much for joining me. It's been a slightly longer one than usual. I hope you found it valuable. If you did, please do hit that like button on the video. It lets YouTube know that this was useful, and I hope that it was for you. If you want to join us next time, make sure to hit subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel, and hit the little bell and turn on the notifications so that you get notified when we go live right here, so that you don't miss the live session. Next week we're going to be talking about developing healthy habits. So it's a really, really important topic, and I'm excited to dive into it with you. That's it for this week.